ready to ring in the new year with a new episode of the What Is Up podcast? Well, let me ask you one question. What do Chef Gordon Ramsay, Martha Stewart, and today's guest all have in common?
They like cooking.
That's right, they all love to stir the pot. And Bubba's been cooking this one up for a while now. Chad Frost is the very first Fairbank dad to accept the invite to appear on the podcast.
Good luck!
And if things don't go well, he could be the last. I'm definitely not coming on anytime soon unless this episode rocks. So let's see how these guys set the tone for what is sure to be a great new year. And here is your host, Bubba Seaman.
Thank you. Welcome back for another episode. This will be the first episode of 2024. And let me tell you, this is going to be a good one. Who said fireworks are only for the 4th of July? Huh? I had to line up a special guest to help me pull this one off because if you know me, I'm in this mild state of post-Christmas depression. I hate it when Christmas is over and you got to get back to work and get back to the usual stuff. So I had to make sure this episode really was an exciting one. And I'm just wondering if any of you guys out there, if you feel that way, if you look forward to Christmas all year, and then when it's over, you kind of feel a little down. It's like I never grew up. I'm still like a kid. You know, as kids, you want Christmas Day to get here as soon as possible because you want to open those presents. But if you're like me, as an adult, you enjoy everything about the Christmas season, and you don't want Christmas Day to get here because then you know it'll all be over. That's a sign you've grown up. When the presents don't mean as much anymore, but it's the joy you see in your kids or your family or your friends or getting together, you know, with family and church family and things like that. But as we record this episode on New Year's Eve, I am determined to look forward to the new year and make this the best year possible. Who knows? This podcast could take off this year and really blow up into something big, something, you know, really well known. I doubt it, and you as a listener can say you helped do that. You were in on the ground floor. You can say you were there in the beginning when Bubba was in his basement using borrowed equipment and acting like he knew what he was doing. Don't think it'll happen? Yeah, me neither. But God has done far greater things, I'll tell you that. And I'm just trying to encourage people by pointing them to Jesus, pointing them to God's word for truth. And that verse, my power is perfected in weakness, he's got to be talking about me. He's got to be talking about all of us. So we'll see what he can do with that. So let's ring in the new year with my first guest, Chad Frost. What is up, man?
What's up, Bubba? How you doing?
Doing good. Trying to move forward into the new year. Put Christmas behind me, I guess. But yeah. Now, at first glance, Chad's just your typical small-town dad. You know, he's the first Fairbank dad that has agreed to come on the podcast. So I'm not exactly sure what that tells me. Either the podcast sucks or some of the other dads are nervous or timid. I don't know. But if you're listening to this and you're a Fairbank dad and I haven't asked you to be on the podcast, you might want to hit me up because I want more local people on the podcast for sure. So hopefully Chad's episode will put you guys at ease and you might consider coming on in the future. So we're just going to jump right into it. For people that don't know you or whatever, or people that aren't from Fairbank, you know, what does your life look like right now?
Yeah, obviously, currently right now I'm a UPS driver. I've been doing that for about 4 years. Obviously, this time of year is I look forward to New Year's Eve because that means Christmas time is over and the 10.5, 11-hour days are done for the most part. So that always feels good. Married, have a wife, be 24 and a half years.
Nice.
We celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary in June of 2024. So very proud and very happy with that. Got 3 boys. Cooper's 13, Landon's 15, and Jonah is 17. Busy with them. You know, they're involved in sports, football, cross country, wrestling right now at this time of year.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that keeps us busy. And, you know, a lot of times during the summer is when I like to be outside and doing things in the yard. And, you know, that's kind of why I spend my off time is really just being with my family and stuff because my wife works long hours and very hard, and I work long hours and very hard. So when we get home, we like being home. And we're not really homebodies, but we enjoy being home and being home with
Yeah,
the kids.
yeah.
And
What does
stuff,
she
so.
do? What does Amy do for a living?
Amy's a nurse. She's a registered
Okay.
nurse, and she's nurse manager, nurse supervisor, I guess you
Okay.
could say right now. So a little more demanding and stuff for her in long-term care. She's been working at the Western Home in Cedar Falls for it'll be 27 years in October.
Dang.
It was 26 years, excuse me.
Nice.
She's been there for 26 years.
Nice.
So,
Wow. Well, I know one thing you spent a lot of your time on recently, I don't know, the last, seems like years, is a home renovation project. It seemed like every time I drove by, a window was out or home wrap was exposed or siding was peeled off. Are you done with that?
no, that house is never done. I mean, if you look now, if you go by the house, I still got, they're not windows anymore. I closed them up and drywalled over on the inside, but on the outside,
Okay.
I still got you still see the plywood. I got to get
Okay.
that taken care of. But yeah, I gutted the whole upstairs of our house. Our home was built in 1906. And
No kidding.
so we went up there. I was trying to, what happened was we had some water damage from a roof leak. And
Okay.
I was trying to repair that. And finally I was like, you know what? Let's just do it.
Start over.
So we just dug in and just tore everything out right to the 2x4s, rewired, reinsulated,
Okay.
redid. Everything up there is brand new. And
Nice.
so, yeah, that took some time because I did the majority of that work myself. And
Man.
when busy and stuff, it's hard to do that. And I think from now on, I might just hire stuff done. So it'll get done a whole lot faster. May not be cheaper, but it'll
It's
get done a lot
definitely
faster.
not cheaper.
No.
But sometimes you got to get to a point where, like, I got a buddy at church. He says the same thing. His wife's like, hey, can't you do that? And he's like, yeah, I probably could. Nowadays with the internet, yeah, I could. But do you want it done right? Do you want it done fast? You want it done perfect? You better call the man.
Yep.
Yeah. You want it to take a while? You want me to be in some bad moods? You want me? Yeah, I can probably do it.
Right,
But-
exactly. Exactly.
All right. Well, that's definitely one thing I wanted to ask you about. That's true. And all you kids that are young, college age right now is not time to buy a house anyway. You can thank who's ever in charge of the economy for that. But when you do get ready to own your own house, that you'll hear no truer statement. The house is never done.
Never
unless
done.
unless you're buying some $500,000 piece of property in Woodses.
Right.
If you're buying something older like us, you're never done. It's always something. And if it ain't your house, then it's going to be your vehicle and your kids' vehicles. And it's just being a dad. We don't wear capes, but we're freaking superheroes, I tell you.
For sure. For sure.
All right. Well, let's go back, man. Let's go back to the childhood. Tell everybody a little bit about where and when and how you grew up and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so grew up in Fairbank. Lived in Fairbank pretty much my whole life. In fact, grew up right down the street here, Bubba, from your place here. And
Okay.
my aunt and uncle actually used to own this home that you're in.
Really?
Yeah, they moved out in 1988 or 87.
So did Moen buy
But-
from them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And
Gotcha.
so I spent quite a bit of time up here in this house. But two older sisters, a brother. My oldest sister, she's 7 years older than me. She lives down in Kansas City. Retired.
Don't say a Chiefs fan.
Well, they're a Patrick Mahomes fan. I don't know if there's any Chief fans down there. I think all Patrick. They have some mental issues down there with Patrick Mahomes.
Okay. There we go. There we go.
But no, that's where they end up retiring out of the Air Force. My
Okay.
sister and her husband both put in 25 years, retired out as officers, and
Nice.
that's where they landed. It was in Kansas City. So, and then my brother lives in Waterloo. Him and his wife. He's got two little girls, 6 and 5, I believe, or 5. Yeah, 6 and 5.
Okay.
And then he also has two older children. One's 22, the other one's will be 20. Boy and a girl. And so yeah, of course lived up down the street. Of course, Bellis's still live here
Yep.
across the street.
Yep.
They were there when I grew up. Same with Ross's across the street from you.
Yeah.
Same with Brant's down there. I mean, it really hasn't changed much
No,
up here
no, just us.
in 40 years. So, but yeah, growing up in Fairbank and stuff was great. I mean, we ride our bikes everywhere.
Yep.
Everywhere. And it didn't matter what time of year it was. I mean, it would be January. We didn't care. We just bundled up. We took off. And, I'm a Gen Xer, and I am that typical Gen Xer. So whenever you see stuff like on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram, whatever, about a Gen X,
Yeah.
that's me.
Yeah.
To a
Okay.
T. I mean, I fit that role. I mean, we did. It was a lot of injuries, trips to the emergency room. That one summer, I was in the emergency room so many times for stitches that they actually called Child Protection Services on my parents because they thought it was abuse.
Like negligence, yeah.
Yeah, and they're like,
Wow.
no, he's just a boy.
We're letting him do his thing.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
I got hit. I think that summer I got hit in the head with a swing because, back then the swing sets, it was that hard plastic with a piece of metal
Yeah.
across the bottom. Yeah, I got hit in the head like that. Got hit my head against a end table, or I know I had my finger smashed in a door. And just,
Yep.
you name it, fell off a tree. I mean, you name it, it was it. But
I know what you mean.
yeah, the small town living was great, and I loved it. That's for
Okay.
sure, and that's why we're here and raising our kids here too.
Yeah. Okay. So you never moved away at all? Not.
No, I mean I spent a couple years in Waterloo, Cedar Falls,
Okay.
when I moved out of the house, but when I met my wife, and,
You knew you wanted to come back.
Yep, and
Okay.
she's from California, so she wanted to be closer to family, and of course her family's out there, and so she goes, "Your family's here, so let's move it here in Fairbank." So I want to be close to family. I'm like, no problem.
Nice. Nice.
So that's what we did.
Okay. And you had shared with me you had some tragedy, though, when you were younger, too, in your family.
Yeah. Well, when I was 11 years old, in fact, it was November 19th of 1988. I was 11, and my sister, like I said before, I had two older sisters.
Yep.
I had an older sister. She's 2 years older than me. Her name was Liza, and she was killed in a accident riding her bike to a friend's house. And that's one of those days that even though I'm 46 years old today, I can still tell you to the minute exactly how that whole day went.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things you just never forget, and
Oh,
it really shapes you of who you're going to become.
Yeah.
And it's from that experience, really learned what I wanted to do and how I wanted to be, not only as an adult, but as a husband and a father when I had kids. Because just watching everyone around me, watching my family members, watching my parents,
Yeah.
and that interaction. So what happened is that Saturday morning at our house, it was chore day.
Okay.
And you weren't doing anything until your chores are done.
Okay.
And most of us, we had to sign things. Most of the time it was our bedroom, and maybe it was the living room and then the kitchen or
Yeah.
dishes, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And my sister, she got done. Liza got done with her stuff, and she was heading to a friend's house over by the ballpark, Fairbank. And she took off on her bike, and I saw my friend riding up the street, Ryan Bellis, who was across the street.
Okay.
And I went out, talked with him, and I remember seeing my sister on her bike turn toward the ballpark.
Okay.
And that was the last time I ever saw her alive. And I don't know, it was probably about 10 minutes after that. Phone rang in the house. I answered the phone. Didn't recognize the voice. All they said was, "Chad, I need to talk to one of your parents now."
Yeah.
I went, "Okay." So I ran down the hall, grabbed my mom. My mom answered the phone. She's like, "Yeah." And she went, okay. I hung up the phone, ran in the back of the house, grabbed my dad, and they were out the door. And it was just me and my brother home. So my brother was 10, I was 11. And it's like we didn't know what was going on.
Right.
And
Yep.
my parents drove off and stuff. And then my neighbors across the street, because I went out to see where my parents were going. And I saw them turn the same way as my sister did. And then my neighbors across the street go, "Hey, did you see the ambulance?" I said, "No, I didn't see that. I heard it, but I didn't see it." I go, "Which
Yeah.
way to go?" And they pointed in same direction that my sister went, my parents went.
Yep.
I was starting to put some things together
Yep.
a little bit. And so I hopped on my bike and I rode my bike down toward that direction. And I got about the car wash, where Jerry's car wash is.
Okay.
And I got about right there. And all I could see was a van on the wrong side of the road. And I could see the ambulance leaving. And my parents' car was behind the ambulance. And I was kind of like, okay, obviously something happened.
Yep.
I don't know what, don't know how bad, something happened. And my grandparents, who live south of Fairbank, my mom's parents, they pulled up. And my grandma, her eyes are all welted up and everything.
Yeah.
And my cousin was in the back seat. And my grandma tells me, she goes, "Go home now. We'll be there in a few minutes. We're going to take Jason home, and then we'll be there in a few minutes." I'm like, okay. So I went home, and of course, after 2 minutes, I'm like, I got to know what's going on.
Yep.
So I called the people that live It was Patty and Jean Brandt. They used to live in the house where Betty Kleitch lives now.
Okay.
So it'd been real near that intersection right there.
Yeah.
So I called up and I go, "Hey, Patty, this is Chad Frost." She's like, "Oh, Chad, are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm fine." I'm like, "What's going on?" And she goes, "Well, your sister, a car hit your sister. And I think she's going to be fine. She's got a little bump on her head, but that's it. I think she's going to be fine." And I'm like, "Okay." She goes, "So just relax." And she goes, "Are you home alone?" I'm like, "Well, my grandma and grandpa are on their way."
Yeah.
And she's like, "All right." And so the rest of that afternoon, though, that was to me, that was probably the toughest day.
Oh, I'm sure.
Was that whole day, because I didn't get to see my parents again until probably 10 o'clock that night.
Yeah.
My sister came home in the afternoon. I told her what happened. I didn't know what. My sister was 18, she's senior in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know any details. So she just took off and went to the hospital and tried to find out what's going on. And one of the probably the hardest things I've done in my life, probably until this day, was when I was 11 years old, is across the street from us where Vicky Kaufman lives now.
Okay.
Bob, Mary, and Hetwer used to live there, and they were basically the third set of grandparents to me.
Okay.
And I loved them to death, and they loved me to death. I loved our family to death.
Yeah. And
I went over and I told them, "Hey, I just want to let you know this happened. I don't know anything else, but I think you guys should know." And they're like, "Okay." And I don't know exactly. It was sometime early afternoon, a few hours later, maybe 5 hours later, is when my parents called and talked to my grandma. And then my grandma told my brother and I that my sister had passed and stuff. And what happened is that it was a severe head injury is what it was. And a big blessing out of that, though, is that she was able to help so many people, because my parents she was an organ donor.
Nice.
And that's something my family's always believed in.
Yeah.
And still do to this day. And but she was able, because there was nothing else wrong except for that one head injury, and that was it. And but the University of Iowa was able to perfect a heart and lung transplant at the same time. It wasn't successful, but they said they learned so much from that procedure that now they have such a great success rate. Her corneas and, of course, skin and kidneys, all that stuff. And my parents had gotten an anonymous letter, I don't know, a couple years later in the mail, and just someone saying thank you is what it was. And they said they did their own investigating and kind of figured out, and here it was a teenage boy that got a kidney and saved his life and stuff. So, that was a real blessing.
Yeah, that's the silver lining.
That, yep.
Yeah.
But, and then, of course, I had to go across the street and tell the Hetwers that what happened and stuff. And that's when I broke down, was at that time.
Okay.
With them and stuff. And old Bob, if you ever talk to any local Fairbank people that have been here a long time, they all know who Bob Hetward is.
Okay.
And he was a drunk, hard, cussing son of a bee, but he had a heart of gold. And he loved my sister. He always called her Susie. Don't know why, but that's what he called her. He called her Susie. And that's the only time I've seen that man break down before. And it was tough. But, my brother's tougher. I'm tougher. My parents are tougher. My parents stay together, and that's very rare.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, when a couple loses a child, for that couple to stay together. And they worked really hard on each other and to do that, to stay together.
Yeah.
And was some of the consequence of that for my brother and I? Yeah, it did. But my brother and I, we don't hold any grudges to our parents. We just had it was a long 5-6 year period during a very important developmental time of your life, and having minimal parenting, but they did what they needed to do. And as an adult, I understand that.
You get it now.
Yeah. As a teenager, I was just a ticked off teenager. And, I didn't make a lot of right decisions and stuff during that time frame, but, like I said, though, it's today, because of that, like I said, I've really learned a lot from my parents of
Yeah,
what it meant.
yeah.
You know, how do you handle adversity within your marriage, within your family, and stuff like that, especially when it's the worst possible
Yeah.
adversity any parent could experience,
Yep.
in my opinion.
Yeah, you're not supposed to bury your own kids.
No.
It's supposed to be the other way around.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't personally relate to what you're saying, but I know exactly what you mean. I've talked to enough people. That's tough for sure. And that's what I was going to ask you. Having watched your parents go through that, how does that? But you're kind of just hit on that, like watching them, how you handle adversity. I mean, you can do it the right way, or you can do it the wrong way, or whatever. But that's awesome to see that they made it through together. Because I can't remember where I read that. Like, it's not even just like the death of a kid. It's like if any major traumatic, like life or death. I think that's what it was. I was watching one of those shows where people get stranded, or something, and it's like I almost died, or we nearly survived, or something like that. One of those shows. And my wife looked over and she goes, "Oh yeah, I remember hearing about this 10 years ago. Yeah, they ended up getting divorced and this and that." And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, that's kind of like par for the course. If you have a near-death experience, like something happened, or obviously if you lose somebody, there's some sort of breakdown in the relationship, and they can't cope with things. And then, especially if it's like a husband on the way home from a family gathering and he takes a wrong turn and they get stuck out in this ditch, and then they're out there for days. I think that's kind of the scenario I was thinking of." And it's like, it's kind of his fault or whatever, and they don't intend to break up, but it's just the trauma of it all.
Yep.
They can't work past it.
Yep. I think a lot of it is resentment. I think that's what a lot of it is that they're unable to, they take blame or they blame the other.
Yeah.
For one reason or another, at a certain level of another.
And no one asked for that.
No.
Neither one of them asked for that.
Right.
You guys as kids didn't ask for that.
Right. And there's other people that, that saw her that day, that morning, and stopped and said hi, and they're like, they're trying to take, like, oh my gosh, if I had hung her up, she would have already been there.
Yep.
But it's like, no,
you can't do that.
You can't do that.
Nope,
No,
that's not how life works.
And and it really changes your perspective. And unfortunately, my family, we were always, when I was a kid and stuff, we're always religious, going to church and stuff. We're Catholic, and that's just what we did. And then when you get older and stuff, you're like, you can't blame God for that happening.
No,
because he may not have made the choice.
Yeah.
Because the greatest power that he gave any of us is the power to choose.
Yeah.
And he just is, a lot of it, he's letting us do what we need to do.
Live life, yeah.
And unfortunately, someone else made a choice. And accidents happen.
Yeah. Yep.
And, and that's what happened. And so, and my parents, we never gave up on our faith during that time frame and stuff. There was never any, blaming God or anything like that. It was really, of course, you don't accept it, but you do accept it.
Yeah.
And that's what happened, knowing that, hey, she's in a way better place
than
she ever could be.
Yeah.
And she'll be just sitting there waiting for us when we get there. So.
Yeah, that's right, man. That's my wife's mom died when we were in high school, and at some point, I remember hearing her dad say, I mean, this could have been years later. I think he was talking to someone else, and he said something to the effect of, even if she could, she wouldn't come back. Where she's at now, when you as a Christian, as a believer, and you understand what heaven is, you ain't choosing this. You love your family, great, but you ain't choosing this earth over heaven any day of the week. So
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's good. All right. Well, we definitely wanted to give you some time to talk about that. I'm sure that can help some people, encourage some people. But life does move on, and so you're, what you said, you were 11 at the time, so you got you got these formative years coming up, those junior high school years.
Yeah.
And you said you were a pretty rambunctious kid. You mentioned some injuries and working on the hog farm, and so give us a little bit about that junior high school.
Yeah. So growing up, being a kid, and for the OGs of Fairbank all know that about playing football at the IC Church lot. And, we played tackle football.
So did we.
There was no such thing as two-hand touch.
No.
And we didn't care if you were 10, 11 years old and there might be a 15, 16-year-old kid out there. You just got ran over.
Play at your own risk.
But you know what? Didn't stop me from putting my head in there. I didn't really care. I tackle anybody.
Yeah.
And so when I got to junior high, I got to play real football, I was beyond ecstatic. I mean, football is my thing. I loved it. And in 8th grade, first game of the year, we had the ball first. I think it was the first or second play of the game. I played tight end. It was a pass play to me. Caught it, running down the field. Had a guy hit me low. Another guy hit me high. Well, when he hit me high, my pads came up and the helmet hit me directly in the shoulder. So I broke my humerus, dislocated my shoulder, busted up a couple other little bones in there.
Wow.
But, of course, at the time, when it happened, my whole arm went numb. So I just hopped up, ran to the sideline, said, hey, my shoulder's numb. And the coach is like, well, you have a stinger.
Stinger. Oh,
you
yeah.
have a stinger.
Yeah.
Like, all right. And so I'm sitting there, and after about 10 minutes, he's like, how's it feel? I'm like, it still hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hurting pretty bad. And so at halftime is when I got to go into the locker room, and we took pads off and stuff. And of course, my shoulder was just swollen. It was huge.
Yeah, that's not a stinger.
No. And, of course, my junior high football coach is Tony Foster.
Okay.
And he still to this day, he's always like, oh, I feel so bad for that. Because I made you sit out there on the sideline. It was cold. And here you had a busted up shoulder and stuff. I'm like, Tony, forget about it. All right, But I ended up having to, I went to the doctor the next day. And they did x-rays and saw everything, how bad it was. And they said, come back tomorrow morning. They threw a couple pins in. And had it in a sling then for a couple of months. But yeah, I got a nice cool trick now when everyone kind of looks at me. It's because because I broke the growth plate, my humerus.
Okay.
So my humerus is about 1.5 inches shorter.
No kidding.
Than my other
Look
one.
at that. Look at that. He's holding his hands out, and yeah, you can see one is shorter than the other.
And no one ever believes me until I go get like fitted for a tux or a suit, whatever, and they'll measure my right arm. I'm like, you need to measure my left one too, because it's about 1.5 inches shorter than the other one.
Take an inch off.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it is, but
oh man.
it did stop me from playing football. The next year, freshman year, I went out and played football again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably had one of the best seasons of my life was my freshman year coming back, because I didn't get to play for a year.
Yeah.
And but it was a lot of fun. And in high school, I played football 4 years. I wrestled for a couple of years. Did track my freshman year. But other than that, I was more interested. Of course, being a Gen Xer, it was if you want gas money, you use your own.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad were kind enough to provide a car for us to use. It wasn't ours, but we could use it. But, we had to pay for the gas. We had to wash it.
Sure.
And, Dad would take care of the oil changes. But so when we turned 14 and started detasseling, Mom and Dad said, you got to buy your own school clothes. Your money, you buy your own school clothes.
Really?
So that's what we started doing. And then when I was 15, my uncle, who used to have a hog operation north of Sumner.
Okay.
He used to come down on the weekends a lot of times and pick me up. And I'd go up there and I'd power wash buildings and stuff for him and do other little things around there. And then, of course, as I got older, more responsibilities. When I got my school permit, it was basically a driver's license. I drove up there.
Yeah.
Worked every day after school. Worked 5-6 days a week during the summer for him. It was a farrowing operation. Sold back then, used to sell pigs at 8 weeks old, 40-pound feeder pigs. And we were busy. I mean, he had a big operation. And I never liked it when I show up in the morning at 5:30 in the morning. He's like, you feel strong today? Because that means we're vaccinating pigs. And we'll vaccinate about 500-600 pigs. And I got to pick up each one at a time. Usually got 2 shots in the legs and then 1 shot in the neck. So you'd have to pick them up, hold them, and then flip them around, hold them so you shoot.
And do they move and wiggle and stuff when you're holding them?
Oh, yeah. But just got to do your best. But, yeah. So
you can build up some pretty good strength doing that, I imagine.
I did. And plus, I still lifted weights and stuff, too. So, yeah, when I was in high school, I was in pretty good shape. That's why I keep trying to tell Jonah and Landon and stuff. You just got to put the work in.
Yeah.
My senior year, I was 195 pounds of football, and I had an attitude to go with it, too. I mean, I had a really bad attitude to go with it.
Yeah.
And I had that bad attitude a lot in high school. But no, it was, one of the things that he told me, and he was the worst person to work for ever. I mean, he yelled and screamed at you, but him and I, we have the best relationship. We have a great relationship still today.
Yeah.
And, there's no resentment there and stuff. But because he taught me a lot. And even though he wasn't trying to, he did. meaning I can work for anyone.
Right.
It doesn't matter who you are. If I need a job, I need to make some money, I can go do it. And I will go do it.
Yep.
And but the best thing that he ever told me, I was probably 15, is he was yelling and screaming at me. We were in the truck going to the other farm, and he stops. He got silent, and he goes, "You know what? You should be paying me for teaching you common sense." And I sat there, kind of looked. I went, "You're probably right." But, you know, I was a 15-year-old kid. Whatever.
Oh, man.
But, you know, you pay me like $4.25 an hour, man. I mean,
yeah.
and,
Wow. That is something that generation would say to us a lot.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he used to. Oh, I mean, we'd go up to his, my cousin, his son is 3 years younger than me. And he was heavily involved in 4-H and stuff. And he had show cattle and stuff. And, well, we had to run up to Fort Atkinson, Iowa to the sale barn, hay barn up there. To get hay and stuff like that for him. That one time we went up there, and there was 3 semis of alfalfa bales, small bales, sitting outside the barn. And my uncle goes, "Hey, why don't you go up there, grab what we need, throw it on our trailer, and then start helping them unload while I go in and take care of it and pay." I'm like, okay. I unloaded all 3 of those semis. There was a couple guys inside, and then it was me on the semis.
No kidding.
And I got in the truck, and I go, "I hope you got a good deal on that hay," because I got a really good deal on that hay. And he handed me a Mountain Dew and said, "Thanks." I'm like, "That's it?" I'm like, "Come on." But yeah, he used to.
That was a lot of labor for a Mountain Dew.
Oh yeah, he used to. But you know, when I got in high school, he really did take care of me. I mean, he allowed me to, you know, fill up my car from the fuel tank right there, and you know, he bought a lot of my winter gear and stuff that I needed to work outside. You know, boots and coats and stuff. You know, and it wasn't the cheap stuff either. I mean, it was nice Carhartt stuff.
Yeah.
And so you know, he was hard on me, but he took care of me and stuff too at the same time.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I like those kinds of guys that, you know, a little bit of effort goes a long way with them. If you just, you know what I mean? If you pull your weight, they'll be very appreciative.
Well, yeah, and they, you know, and his setup is, you know, like in one place we had 6 farrowing buildings, and we didn't have augers to run feed into each one of the farrowing crates. So I had to carry 5-gallon buckets of feed, and that was always the thing I had to do, is in the morning, because his wife, my aunt, that's what she did, is she, in the morning and in the evening, she did the chores for the farrowing buildings.
Okay.
But I had to have the feed sitting outside the door at each building for her. And I don't know, it's probably 25, 30 yards, carrying 2-3 buckets. Sometimes, well, when I got a little older, 17 or so, then I was able to carry about 4 buckets of feed at a time.
Jeez.
And today, I can't imagine doing that. Oh my gosh, I'd be sore for 2 months if I just. But you know, did that twice a day. I mean, it was tough. It was hard work. But you know, when you're at that age, I guess I didn't know any different.
Yep.
I just wanted the money.
I'm seeing a pattern here. Like, yeah, the harder life is when you're younger, like the better it can actually work out for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of what we're getting at. Before we move on to any of this other stuff, we got to give. So you said you were buddies with Ryan Bellis.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if you were aware of this, because that's just the way the grades are falling with our boys or whatever. But do you remember a couple of years ago, his boy Briar had a shoulder injury?
Yeah.
Okay.
He did. Yep.
So we got to tell that story.
Yeah. So he broke his growth plate too.
Yeah.
And it might be the same arm, the left arm. I'm not 100% sure, but I had texted Ryan and stuff about it, and I said, "Well, you tell Briar, welcome to the short arm club, because he's going to hit a growth spurt during that time, and you know, he's going to have one arm shorter than the other one, because while everything else was growing, that one's healing."
Yeah.
So.
Man, I was running chains that night for that game, so he went up for this pass like right in front of us and came down. It looked like I could tell he landed just right on the top of his shoulder, you know, and he gets up, he's rolling around the ground, he's hurting or whatever. But then it's same story as you. He gets over to the sideline, and me and Ryan are talking about something like, yeah, you know, it's probably hurt. Just sit there for a while or whatever, you know, and same thing. Ryan told me like a week later, he's like, yeah, I was kind of telling him like, dude, after a few minutes, you know, like, come on, toughen up
right.
a little bit or whatever. And it's like, he obliterated everything in that shoulder, everything. And here we're sitting here thinking, he could come back in any minute. And it's like, no, no, get him to the hospital. That boy needs surgery. But dang, yeah. So you guys you connected that way. All right, so High school. You got anything else around the high school days or anything like that? You talk sports a little bit. What about after high school?
Yeah. Well, my plan was for high school is I was going to go into the Air Force. My junior year, I started that whole process, and biggest thing that recruiter and I were concerned about was my shoulder.
Okay.
You know, to make sure I can get through the physical and stuff
Yep.
with my shoulder, even though I hadn't have any problems with it. So I went down to Des Moines for the physical, and of course I had to refill out the health questionnaire. And I do still kind of curse my parents for this, for teaching me to be honest.
That's a good thing.
I know.
That's a good thing.
But one of the questions on there was, have you ever had a heart murmur? Well, I
Okay.
was born with a heart murmur.
Okay.
But the last time the doctors ever detected it, I was probably like 9 or 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I had completely outgrown it and
Yep.
had never been detected since. Even when I told them, they knew I had a heart murmur, and like doing a school physical and stuff for sports, they're listening to it, and they're like, no, it's not there.
Yep.
Well, I went through the whole physical, and the doctor was about ready to give me the stamp of approval. Then he saw that I marked that yes. And he listens to my heart, and he goes, yeah, we're going to have to do some further testing. I hear something there. So then they sent me, get like a echocardiogram or something like that,
Yep,
like
yep.
an ultrasound.
Sure.
And then they told me, you have a right to left ventricle shunt. And I go, am I going to die, or what's that mean?
Yeah.
I'll just go home to your doctor and they'll get it taken care of. I'm like, okay. So I came back to Waterloo, went to the cardiologist, and he goes, first of all, if you had a left to right ventricle shunt, you'd be dead. Okay. And he goes, so obviously you don't have that, but they did a scope and stuff, whatever that scope is, they put the camera down your throat and scope everything out.
Yep.
And he goes, fantastic heart. He goes, you actually probably have one of those 1 in a million hearts. He goes, there's nothing there. He goes, your valves don't even leak hardly anything. He goes, compared to most. So you're good. So I try to appeal that. And, I wrote letters to congressmen, and my sister was her in the Air Force. She was doing what she needed to do and trying to get in, and they still denied me. But, that was 94, 95. The government wasn't worried about,
Yeah.
at that time, Bill Clinton and stuff. That's why. So, quick story, off topic a little bit, but Jonah, my oldest,
Okay.
he enlisted in the National Guard. He goes to boot camp this summer after his junior year, and it was funny because we were talking to the recruiter, and the recruiter looked at me. He goes, "Did you serve?" And I go, "No." He goes, "Why not?" I go, "Bill Clinton." And the bottom was they weren't spending money, and so that's why I didn't get in. So then I had to go. All right, what am I going to do now? All right, what am I going to do? I was banking everything going to the service,
Right.
and my uncle offered me a full-time job to work for him on the hog farm, and it was good money. It was a free place to live. All I had to do was pay for my phone, because they had landlines back then, phone and food, and he was going to pay me $35,000 a year. And this is in 1994 or 90.
Dang.
I graduated in 96, so it would have been 96. I could have been right out of high school making $35,000.
Wow.
And having no living expenses, and I was kind of like, ugh. I was tempted, and but I was like, if I do that, I'm always going to be doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I declined that offer, and I end up working doing the same business as my dad, doing insurance and investments. I ended up studying doing that. Realized that's a pretty tough occupation for a 19-year-old kid. Not saying it can't be done, but it couldn't be done by this 19-year-old kid. And so I end up getting a job actually over at Transco in Owine, sandblasting. And so I did that, and then I met my wife, or girlfriend at the time, and we had been dating for a few months, and she was going to head out to California, and her and her friend were going to drive out. And I'm like, hey, just you two? And they're like, yeah. And I was going to quit my job anyway. So I'm like, when you going? And she told me. I'm like, all right. So I would lined up another job. It was a construction job. And but he goes, hey, I don't need you until like August 1st. And I'm like, well, perfect. So I put in a 2-week notice, went out to California for 2 weeks, came home, went right back to work. My parents, I was living at home at the time. My parents didn't like that because I got back from California. All my stuff was packed up in the garage. So I was out the door right then. But after working construction there for a couple of years, I developed carpal tunnel and had that repaired, and I was like, okay, I got to do something different. And so I started looking at Hawkeye and trying to look at different programs that I might be interested in. I ended up taking their electronic engineering program.
Nice.
So that's a 5-semester program. It's about 35 hours. Well, back then it was like about 35 hours a week. It was 18 credits per semester.
Okay.
And so I went to school from usually about 8 a.m. to 3:30, and then I worked at what used to be GMAC Mortgage.
Oh, yeah.
Where I lived from 4 to 9 o'clock in customer service.
Okay.
So I worked 20 hours a week then, and which was a great experience because when it came time to buy a home, I knew exactly what to do because I knew how mortgages worked.
How it worked.
I knew exactly how everything worked. But so got married during that time frame too. I graduated from Hawkeye in 2000, May of 2000. We got married in June of 99. And then after Hawkeye, I told my wife, I go, hey, listen, I'm going to be kind of a job hopper here because we're broke. We need money because she was going to school too for nursing.
Okay.
And she had just finished her LPN and when I graduated. So did a couple of little odd jobs. One of the funnest jobs I ever landed is I landed a tech position with Chuck E. Cheese. And people are like, what? I'm like, man, I got to play video games and got paid. And all I had to do was take care of the games, take care of the take care of the kitchen equipment. Wasn't a tough job, but hey, it made me some money.
Wow.
It didn't make me a ton of money, but it was making me some money. And then I saw my friend of mine, he was working out at Conagra Foods, the pudding plant in Waterloo.
Okay, yep.
And he was just showing me the benefit package. And I was like, holy cow, like the health insurance and stuff. I'm like, then he told me he was making like 20-some bucks an hour. I'm like, man, I need to get on here. And he goes, well, they're getting ready to do some hiring. So I applied and I got hired on out there. So I started out there in April of 2001. And I don't know, probably after 3 or 4 years is when I decided that I was going to, I wanted to go back to school.
Okay.
Even though I'd never liked school, like I didn't like high school and I didn't even like going to Hawkeye and stuff, but
yeah,
I was like, I can kind of see if I want to move up and that's what I need to do. So, and they had a good college, tuition reimbursement program.
Yep.
And so I always tell people, listen, I went to UNI, I got my bachelor's degree in technology management. I learned a lot and it cost me $1,500.
Nice.
Do I use that degree today? No, I don't use any of my education today, but it did what it needed to do for that period of life.
Yeah.
And so I was a safety manager then. I transitioned to the safety manager out there at Conagra for a couple of years, and then I went from there to Target Distribution.
Okay.
I worked out there being a facilities supervisor, basically maintenance supervisor. And then when my third child, my youngest, was born, I took a couple weeks off and I told my wife, I go, you know what, I don't think I'm going to go back. And because I didn't like it. I mean, I hated it.
Okay.
If I'm scheduled to work Saturday, Sunday, Monday, which I worked 3 12-hour days. I came in one day on my off time because I had to finish up time cards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then they started wanting me to come in on Wednesdays and come in on Thursdays and be on a phone call on this day. I'm like, no, that's no way. That's
starting
not
to
me.
be too much.
Yep. If I got paid by the hour, maybe, but I was salary, and I was like, nah, there's no way. So I went back to the insurance investment business again with my dad. I did that from 2010 to 2019.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed visiting with people and getting to know people and trying to help them in their financial gaps that they might have, and what I could do and what products I had to be able to help them. So I don't regret that at all. And I tell all my clients that might be listening to this, their own clients, I still believe in it. I still have all the same stuff. Even though my dad retired from it, I'm no longer working there. I still have the same products.
Okay.
I don't regret one single thing that I did with anyone.
See, I think that's when I first remember like seeing you or something at a school function or something. You were dressed up like nice.
Yeah,
and I was like, Chad don't do manual labor for a living.
No, I always wore a suit. It's the first time in my life I didn't do manual labor.
Yeah.
It's the first time in my life.
So here, you had done a lot of manual labor, and then you had that stint. Okay, and now you're back to One of the most physical jobs there is, man.
Yeah,
Okay.
it really is. And that's when, that's kind of when I had to make a decision. I was looking at possibly doing something just to pick up a little more consistency of income.
Okay.
Amy is making some really good money. And I was making good money too, but 100% commission, it's so spotty.
Yeah. Yep.
You're either living high in the hog or you're the hog, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And so I was looking for something a little more consistent, and that's why I looked up for UPS just to work part time. And being a loader in the morning, I could work it was like from 4 a.m. to 9 a.m.
Okay.
20 hours a week, and then once you've been there, I don't remember what it was, 6-9 months, something like that. Then you get full-time benefits even, and I was kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. And but I really started digging into that then and fill out my application and stuff. Amy got sick again. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but because I want to make sure that my family always had health benefits.
Yeah. Yep.
And so that's just kind of how it transitioned to me being a driver, because I was loading trucks and in the morning, and then they asked me, they're like, we need drivers for this Christmas season. You want to drive? I'm like, sure. And so I was like, we're making a decision now.
You didn't even you didn't even go to be like the helper of the driver. You just
Nope.
went straight to your own truck.
Yep.
No kidding.
And I was like, when they asked me, I'm like, I'll tell you tomorrow. I went home and had a conversation with Amy. I go, hey, listen, I think I'm going to make the change. I think this is what I think this is what's going to be best for us.
Yeah.
And best for our family is I think we're going to need consistency. We're going to need benefits, all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, I know I'm 42 and I'm jumping into a real physical job, but I was like, hey, I'm sure there's other guys that are out there. And I did learn that there are other guys that started out there in their mid to late 40s.
Yeah.
And you're right. It is a very physical job. Benefits are great. Pay is great, but it has to be to do the work.
Yeah. It's demanding.
So
yeah.
that's how I ended up being a UPS driver. So I'm a man in brown now.
All right. All right. Screw you, FedEx. Yeah.
No kidding.
So, yeah, let's talk a little bit about Amy getting sick and stuff like that and dealing with that, because obviously the health insurance. But, I mean, I imagine she had good health insurance at the hospital? Or
No, she working at long-term care. Yeah, it used to be pretty good, but it's yeah.
Is long-term, what do you mean by long-term care?
Assisted living, skilled care,
Oh, gotcha.
nursing home,
Gotcha.
nursing
Okay.
home stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Not like nurse running floors at a hospital
No.
type stuff.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Because I didn't know any of this about when you told me about this. I was like, oh my gosh, I never even know she had it once, much less twice, anything like that.
Yeah, so in 2012, I think it was April, May 2012, I remember Amy, she was in the shower, and she goes, hey, come here. And I'm like, what? She's like, I feel something right here. What do you feel? And I thought there, I'm like, that's a lump.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. That is a lump. I mean, and she's like, okay. So, obviously got a doctor's appointment in, all that stuff right away, got a biopsy done. And I was in there at the doctor's office with her, and the doctor walked in. I just look at his face, and I just said, okay, we know she has cancer. Okay, we know it's breast cancer. Just tell us how bad it is and what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And he's kind of looked at me. He's like, well, I didn't know if you guys, we don't need a minute. We don't have a minute. Let's knock this out.
Let's do it.
Let's get it done.
Let's go.
And Amy was in the same boat. And so I don't remember the exact type of breast cancer it was, but it was in her left breast. And so we did a double mastectomy because we're like, let's do whatever treatment we can do so we don't have to do this again.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't want it coming back. And he's like, all right. So she did double mastectomy, did chemo, did radiation, absolute trooper.
Yeah.
Through that. A lot of people that have had interactions with Amy, they all know she is the sweetest, kindest person ever. But she is tough.
Fighter.
Oh, she is. She is tough. And that woman didn't complain the whole time. She never complained. I mean, after a double mastectomy and stuff, we had an unfortunate death in our family. And so she went to the funeral. She still had all of her drains in and all that kind of stuff. I mean, she had been out of surgery for like 2 days, I think. And I go, just stay home.
Stay
you don't need to
home.
go. She's like, no, I'm going. I'm going. I want to be there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right. And even through, and probably radiation, I think was worse than chemo. Yeah, she no energy chemo and sick, you know, and all that nasty stuff. But she never complained, and she always tried to do what being a mom to the boys, and that's what she wanted to make sure she was doing. And but the radiation was just awful. I mean, go every day and just get hit.
Yep.
Day after day after day. And it's just like getting a sunburn on top of a sunburn on top of a sunburn on top of sun for 6 weeks, you know, or 8 weeks or 12 weeks, whatever it was. It was forever. All I know is that skin was awful. But got done through all that, did some scans, get some testing. Like, you're clear. We got it all.
Yeah.
You're officially in remission. We're
Nice.
like, awesome. And then they put on some medication to take. Just it's kind of a preventative thing. Pretty standard tamoxifen, I think is what it's called, tamoxifen, that most people take to have breast cancer after they go into remission and stuff. And they say you're probably going to be on it for about 5 to 7 years, and then you should be good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in 2018, she was having some problems, coughing, some tightening in her chest, and just discomfort and stuff. And went to the doctor, then x-ray, like, oh, you got pneumonia. And so gave her antibiotics, and after a few days, you know, being a nurse, she's like, I don't have pneumonia because the antibiotics isn't doing anything, nothing. So she went to her doctor, her oncologist. I think it was her oncologist. And the oncologist goes, well, let me look at this x-ray. And they looked at the x-ray, and they went, no, you don't have pneumonia. What that is on the x-ray is actually radiation damage to the lung because it looked cloudy and stuff.
Wow.
So it's a pretty standard thing that happens.
Okay.
And but she goes, I do see something right here in the middle of the chest. She says, I can't really tell what it is. So sent her to what's the lung doctor called, a pulmonologist, whatever.
Pulmonologist. Yeah.
And went there. Of course, they did a scope and stuff, and there was a bump there, and so they biopsied it. Of course, you know, about 5, 6, and that's what stinks about biopsies on this stuff. It's like 6, 7 days. You're just kind of like hanging out. Yeah, you're hanging out there in the wind, going, "Oh my gosh, what the heck's going on?" And they called us and stuff and told us, "Hey, yeah, it's cancer. It's metastatic breast cancer. There's no cure for it. She'll never be in remission. It's a terminal disease. How long you live, no one knows. There's people that died after 2 years. There's people out there who've had it for 14 years.
Okay.
The nice thing is that a couple of years before Amy got diagnosed, a new medication came out that people have had a lot of good luck with it. But when they did a full body scan on Amy, she had tumors all over her body. The major one was in the chest, but she had tumors everywhere, on her spine, on her hips, on her legs, on her everywhere. But nothing was like in an organ, but that might have been on an organ, but not in it.
Yep.
And she was on this medication, and she was taking the medication for about two months, and they did another scan, and she probably went from over 50 tumors down to like 3.
Nice.
And then a few months after that, she only had the one in the middle of her chest.
Okay.
But it was reduced in size greatly. And now it hasn't changed in size, but it's probably about 90% smaller than what it was.
Awesome.
Nothing's changed. Everything's been holding steady. It's been 5 years now. And she keeps fighting. She keeps taking stuff. She has to go to the doctor every month, get scans every couple months.
Yep.
Medication is pretty tough, but and that's one of the reasons why I went to UPS too, is because she carried all the health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
There will be a day she can't go to work.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was going to be in 6 months or 6 years or 20 years. Don't know. And I just didn't want to be in my mid-50s and get caught with my pants down.
Yep.
And going,
You want to be ready now.
What the heck?
Yep.
So, so we were fortunate enough because this medication with insurance, the insurance company is still getting charged $14,000 a pill.
Dang.
And she has to take it. She takes it for, I think, 23 days out of the month.
Wow.
Yep. And if you don't have insurance, pay cash for it. It's $30,000.
Dang.
So
that's crazy numbers, man.
So yeah, so I'm very grateful for UPS's benefit package because we were paying so much money in premiums. We were paying so much. I mean, because yeah, she had good health insurance. She had fairly good health insurance, but it still didn't cover everything.
Nope.
And you still when you're paying $1,000 a month in premiums, and then you got a $6,500 deductible that's due in January every single year when you just come out of Christmas. Now you got to come up with another $6,500, and then you got to come up with $500 to $700 every month additional on top of that.
Yeah.
It made it tough. So I'm very blessed that I was able to get on with UPS and get those benefits where I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
That made a huge difference.
Yeah.
But there's still side effects with this medication and stuff, and a lot of joint pain and things. And Amy takes ibuprofen to handle it. There's a ton of patients out there. I mean, they're on fentanyl patches to handle the pain.
Yep.
And Amy takes ibuprofen. And that's
Dang.
it. She's a tough cookie.
She is tough. Holy
She's
cow.
a tough cookie. So she's doing great as of now. It's one of those experiences. The boys, when she was first diagnosed with cancer the first time, Jonah was not quite 6. Landon was almost 4, and Cooper was 2. And they had to see their mom, lose her hair and be sick, not feel good all the time. And, they didn't fully understand what's going on.
Yep.
They're a little more in tune now, obviously. But, it's one of those things that happen in their life now.
Yep.
That and that's one thing Amy and I were always trying to focus on is let's making sure we're handling this properly and showing how to handle this stuff properly.
Yep, exactly.
That way they can learn.
Yep. Same thing, coming full circle now with your kids.
Yeah, and like I said, she's doing great. And right now I think on this medication there's a person out there because they started in the trial, but they're still on it, still doing good. There's actually more than one. There's several. About 14, 15 years, and they're still doing good.
Nice.
So it's been 5 years, and so we're still very hopeful that, we're still going to get, she thinks, no, it could be 2 years or a year. I'm like, of course it could be. It could be 2 days for me.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
All right. But, I plan on her being around for another 25 years.
Heck yeah.
And I told her, I said, my goal is to try to make sure I outlive her. So... we just don't know, but
man.
yeah, no, she's a trooper. I always say she's the sweetest, toughest person you ever meet.
Nice.
Yep.
Well, yeah, my mom's dealing with some of that cancer stuff right now, and she's told me some of the same stuff about how much this stuff costs, either on insurance, off insurance, all that stuff. It's a nightmare. It's a stinking nightmare. And then we had AJ's camper rental up here, Amanda Gibson.
Yep.
She went through all that, and I've always kind of looked back on that. Like, we were just kind of getting to know, we're all pretty good friends with them now, but we were still kind of getting to know them better back then. And I just felt like when people are going through that, as a Christian, there's certain things you can do to come alongside and share that burden with them. Let them know you're there for them. Let them know you're praying for them. Bring them a meal every now and again and things like that. And I just think, that's just kind of part of when I read the Bible. That stuff's in there, how to share a burden, how to share one another's burdens, and how to do life together with people and stuff like that. And I just say, the Bible's got the best answers, because you guys shouldn't, to a certain degree, you're doing that all on your own. That stuff stays within your family walls, but that doesn't mean, people on the outside can't share in that somehow with you if there's a need. And
that's the toughest thing too, is when people always ask, hey, what can I do?
What can I do? Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are asking my parents, hey, what can we do? What do they need? And they're like, prayers.
Yeah, that's it.
Because we did, Amber Decker here in town, she organized a little bit of a meal train for us for a while and stuff. And that was absolutely
That's
fantastic.
awesome, isn't it?
And
good for her.
That, did we really need it? No, but it was great to see people come in and go, hey, been thinking about you.
Yep.
Been praying for you.
Yep.
You guys are always on my mind.
Yep.
And those type of things. And that helps a lot.
Heck yeah.
It really does.
That's good. That's good. Well, let's pray for her right now. Lord, this breast cancer is just a nasty thing, Lord, and I appreciate Chad talking about it. And so we just want to lift Amy and the Frost family up to you. We know you work through doctors. We know we're not guaranteed tomorrow, but you've done amazing things. And so we just pray continued support and healing for Amy and their family, and for the people we all know around us that are dealing with cancer. For my mom, we give you thanks that Amanda Gibson, and she's made it through that, and just all the people that all the listeners are probably thinking of right now that cancer affects all of us in one way or another. So we just lift these people up to you and pray that you would give them hope and strength when the times are tough, because we know it's rough to go through. And so we just pray for Amy and the Frost right now, and pray you do a healing work there. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right. So we kind of started with, give me something. What do you guys, what's something good? Like, we're just coming out of Christmas and we're looking forward to New Year's. Give me something positive for the Frost family right now. What's going on?
Well, what's going on right now with the family, it's been going on for the last couple of months. We had a great addition to our household that I was always resisted to for a long time, but I'm sure glad for some reason Amy and the boys convinced me that we needed to get a dog.
Oh, my goodness.
And so
we're going to part ways here, Chad. We're
I
going to
know.
part ways.
We went and got a dog. We had some plans of, we looked at this one dog. We were looking at rescues. We were not going to get a puppy because we were like, we're not home enough to handle a puppy
It's
and
a
train
nightmare.
a puppy.
It's a
We're like,
nightmare.
we're not going to do that. And so we, we were checking shelters online and stuff. We found a couple dogs, and we were like, and it just didn't work out. And so it was on a Sunday. We're like, all right, let's go. I told the boys, get in the car. We're gonna go to Arluke, and I go to Cedar Benjamin.
Okay.
And let's just see what they got. Okay. And we got back there, and there's 3 dogs that we identified. They're kind of like, yeah, we're one of these 3. I think are it.
Okay.
And they were all pit bull mixes, which was really odd because Amy was always so resisted to the pit bull mix.
Anti-pit
Yep.
bull, yeah.
And it wasn't that she was mean, they're mean or their persona, but she was kind of like, I just don't think that's the kind of dog I want.
Yeah.
And but so we spent some time with each one of them. The second one, Debbie, she's the one that we adopted. So Debbie is in our house. She's now
Okay.
1. She was about 9-10 months old when we got her. She's a pit bull boxer mix.
Oh,
And-
yeah.
Yeah, when you came in the house, you're like, is that a boxer? I'm
Yeah,
like,
it looked like a boxer, but it looked like it had a little bit of something else.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, well, kind of. She's been a great dog. I mean, she's been great for our family. All she wants to do is love.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's all she wants to do. She doesn't growl. She'll growl, but not in a mean way.
Yeah.
She listens. It's been great. I mean, all of us have a different type of relationship with her.
Okay.
I always say she's my dog compared to everyone else's because I spend every morning with her.
Yep.
Just me and her. But it's been great. I really didn't think I'd get that attached to a pet because I never had a pet before, really, ever in my life. Never had pets when I was a kid.
Okay, yeah, you didn't mention anything growing up.
And working on my uncle's farm and stuff. Yeah, there were a couple farm dogs he had, but we didn't really care about them. As long as they were taking care of the rats and stuff, we didn't really care about anything else. And but that's that's been a real plus. And of course, then Amy and I were emotionally preparing for Jonah. Really entering the adult world. And we're really proud of all 3 of our boys. But really seeing the type of men that they're gonna be, and Jonah being at that point of life where he is a man.
Yeah.
And it's time to start making man decisions and actions and things of that nature. I don't care about words. And so I told him, I don't care about words.
Yep. Talk's cheap.
What are you doing? I want to see your actions. And that's why Amy and I were always trying to make sure our actions are correct. They're not. We're not perfect. Right.
Right.
But parenting's one of those things, a lot of it's just trial and error because I don't remember taking a parenting class.
Nope. When it gets tough in this house, I remind our kids, like, me and Mom, this is the first time we dealt with this.
That's right.
Just because you got one that's older and one that's no, there's no exact science.
Yep.
And we're figuring out as parents too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what we got going on right now in our house, and we're really excited. I'm really excited for, Landon, the middle one, sophomore this year. He's definitely a little more gifted in the wrestling aspect.
Yeah.
So it's really fun to watch him. And we'll see what happens here at the second half of the season here. Had a little tough first half, but
Yeah.
he had a tough first half last year too, and still qualified for state. So
Okay.
he still wants to make sure he tries to get down there. And Cooper, if you ever spend any time with Cooper, anyone spending time with Cooper, you're gonna have a smile on your face the whole time. That kid is just fun.
Okay.
And you just don't know what he's gonna say, and he's funny. He cracks jokes. He's a goofball.
Nice.
We always thought if we were going to have a kid that was going to be a YouTube star, it'd be him. And we probably held him back. That probably really was his calling. But no, everything we got a lot of good vibes going on in the Frost household right now. So.
Nice. That's good. That's good. Well, I think this is a good spot right here to call it part 1, the end of part 1, Chad's story. So we're going to have to make this multiple episodes. So if you guys are listening today and you liked what you heard at all, whether it was, Chad's work ethic growing up and the things he learned, or, the tragedy with losing his sister at a young age and how to deal with that and how to watch your parents deal with that, or maybe it's, dealing with cancer with Amy, again, if you know somebody who could benefit from that, share this podcast with them. That's my whole goal. Chad's sitting in the basement right now. He knows my goal is not to make any money off of this thing. It takes a lot of views and a lot of I'm doing this to encourage people and get people talking again. And that's all I'm trying to do. So if you know somebody who could benefit from some of that conversation today, share it with them. If you want to contact me directly, you can always email me at whatisuppodcast@gmail.com. Check out our Facebook, check out our Instagram, and on the next episode, part 2 with Chad, we'll get into the fun stuff, we'll get into the segments, we'll really find out what Chad thinks, and then we'll wrap it up with the What Is Up segment, where we tackle a little bit more serious issues. So I appreciate you guys listening. Share it as much as you can. Lord willing, I'll talk to you on the next one.